Hi, boys and girls, and welcome back to another edition of Snack Time with a Dollop of Read Aloud. We're going to continue with our next chapter of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling, with permission granted by Scholastic Publishing for me to be able to share this with you. So we want to thank them for their generosity. Now, when we last left Harry, really funny things were going on. Mail was coming out of the fireplace. Mail was sliding out from underneath the door. It was showing up in eggs. No matter what, these letters were trying to get through to Harry from a very important headmaster about something. We don't know for sure yet what. But the Dursleys tried their best to make sure that Harry did not find out what was going on or what was being said. According to him, his family still thinks, or he still thinks, that his family died in a car crash and that the Dursleys are his only family and he has no choices. What we're going to find out next in this one, Chapter 4, The Keeper of the Keys, isn't that a funny drawing? I wonder who you think that is. We'll soon find out. We're going to find out if Harry really has as many or as few choices as he thought he has. Or does he have more choices than he actually believes? So, we're going to get started reading. The Keeper of the Keys. Boom! They knocked again. Dudley jerked awake. Remember, the Dursleys were trying their hardest to keep away from getting these letters sent to them. So they went all over the place. They left the house, they boarded up the doors, then they left the house, and now they're on some kind of island in the middle of the sea, hoping that the letters will stop coming. The letters might stop coming, but apparently someone else just arrived. "Where's the cannon?" he said stupidly. There was a crash behind them, and Uncle Vernon came skidding into the room. He was holding a rifle in his hands. Now they knew what had been in the long, thin package he had brought with them. "Who's there?" he shouted. "I warn you, I'm armed." There was a pause. Then, smash! The door was hit with such force that it swung clean off its hinges, and with a deafening crash landed flat on the floor. A giant man was standing in the doorway. His face was almost completely hidden by a long, shaggy beard. A long, shaggy mane of hair and a wild, tangled beard. But you could make out his eyes, glinting like black beetles underneath all that hair. The giant squeezed his way into the hut, stooping so his head just brushed the ceiling. He bent down, picked up the door, and fitted it easily back into its frame. The noise of the storm outside dropped a little. He turned to look at them. Couldn't make us a cup of tea, could ya? It's not been an easy journey." He strode over to the sofa where Dudley sat, frozen with fear. "Budge up, you great lump," said the stranger. Dudley squeaked and ran to hide behind his mother, who was crouching, terrified, behind Uncle Vernon. "And here's Harry," said the giant. Harry looked up into the fierce, wild, shadowy face and saw that the beetle eyes were crinkled in a smile. "Last time I saw you, you was only a baby. You look a lot like your dad, but you've got your mom's eyes." Uncle Vernon made a funny rasping noise. "I demand that you leave at once, sir," he said. "You are breaking and entering." "Ah, shut up, Dursley, you great prune," said the giant. He reached over the back of the sofa, jerked the gun out of Uncle Vernon's hands, bent it into a knot as easily as if it had been made of rubber, and threw it into the corner of the room. Uncle Vernon made a funny noise, like a mouse being trodden on. "Anyways, Harry," said the giant, turning his back on the Dursleys, "a very happy birthday to you. Got summat for you? I might have sat on it at some point, but I'm sure it'll taste all right." From an inside pocket of a black overcoat, he pulled a slightly squashed box. He opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a large, sticky cake with "Happy Bird Day, Harry" written on it in green icing. Harry looked up at the giant. He meant to say thank you, but his words got lost on the way to his mouth. And what he said instead was, "Who are you?" The giant chuckled. "Ha! True, I haven't introduced myself. Rubius Hagrid, keeper of the keys and grounds at Hogwarts." He held out an enormous hand and shook Harry's whole arm. "What about the tea then, eh?" he said, rubbing his hands together. "I might not say no to something stronger if you got what I'm saying." His eyes fell on the empty grate with the shriveled chip bags in it, and he snorted. He bent down over the fireplace. They couldn't see what he was doing, but then he drew back a second later. There was a roaring fire. It filled the whole damp hut with flickering light, and Harry felt the warmth wash over him as though he had sunk into a hot bath. The giant sat back down on the sofa, which sagged under his weight, and began taking all sorts of things out of his pockets of his coat. A copper kettle, a squashy package of sausages, a poker, a teapot, several chipped mugs, and a bottle of some amber liquid that he took a swig from before starting to make the tea. Soon the hut was full of sound and smelling of sizzling sausage. Nobody said a thing while the giant was working, but as he slid the first 6 fat, juicy, slightly burnt sausages from the poker, Dudley fidgeted a little. Uncle Vernon said sharply, "Don't touch anything he gives you, Dudley." The giant chuckled darkly. Your great puddin' of a son don't need to fatten up any more, Dursley. Don't you worry." He passed the sausages to Harry, who was so hungry he had never tasted anything so wonderful, but he still couldn't take his eyes off the giant. Finally, as nobody seemed to explain anything, he said, "I'm sorry, I still don't know who you are." The giant took a big gulp of tea and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Call me Hagrid. Everyone else does. And like I told you, I'm keeper of the keys at Hogwarts. And you'll know all about Hogwarts, of course." Harry looked at him. No." Hagrid looked shocked. "I'm sorry," Harry said quickly. "Sorry?" barked Hagrid, turning to stare at the Dursleys, who shrank back into the shadows. "It's them that should be sorry. I know you weren't getting your letters, but I never thought you wouldn't even know about Hogwarts, for crying out loud. Did you never wonder about your parents? Did you never wonder at all?" "Wonder all about what?" Harry said. "All about what? Now, wait just a second." He leaped to his feet in his anger. He seemed to fill the whole hut. The Dursleys were cowering against the wall. Do you mean to tell me, he growled at the Dursleys, that this boy knows nothing about anything? Harry thought this was going a bit far. He had been to school after all. His marks weren't that great, but they certainly weren't that bad. "I know some things," he said. "I can, do math and stuff." But Hagrid simply waved his hand and said, "About our world, I mean. Your world, my world, your parents' world." "What world?" Harry asked. Hagrid looked as if he was about to explode. "Dursley!" he boomed. Uncle Vernon, who had gone very pale, whispered something that sounded a little bit like Mimble-Wimble. Hagrid stared wildly at Harry. "But you must know about your mom and dad," he said. "I mean, they're famous. You're famous." "What? My mom and dad weren't famous, were they?" "You don't know. You don't know." Hagrid ran his fingers through his hair, fixing Harry with a bewildered stare. "You don't know what you are," he finally said. Uncle Vernon suddenly found his voice. "Stop!" he commanded. "Stop right there, sir. I forbid you to tell this boy one more thing." A braver man than Vernon Dursley would have qualified under the furious look now that Hagrid gave him. When Hagrid spoke, every syllable trembled with rage. "You never told him what was in that letter Dumbledore had left him. I was there. I saw Dumbledore leave it, Dursley, and you kept it from him all these years." "Kept what from me?" Harry asked eagerly. "Stop it!" I forbid you, yelled Uncle Vernon in panic. Aunt Petunia gave a gasp of horror. Oh, go boil your heads, both of you, Hagrid said. Harry, you're a wizard. There was silence inside the hut. Only the sea and the whistling wind could be heard. I'm a what? Asked Harry. A wizard, of course, said Hagrid, sitting back down on the sofa, which groaned and sank even lower. And a thumping good one, I'd say, once you've been trained up a bit. With a mum and dad like yours, what else would you be? And I reckon it's about time you got your letter. Harry stretched out a hand at last to take the yellowish envelope addressed in the emerald green ink to Mr. H. Potter. The floor, the hut on the rock, the sea. He pulled out the letter and read, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Headmaster, Albus Dumbledore. Order of Merlin First Class. Grand Sorcerer, Chief Warlock, Supreme Mugwump, International Confederation of Wizards. Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on September 1. We await your owl by no later than January 31st. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall, Head or Deputy Head Mistress. Here's his letter. This is what it finally said. Can you see it? Exciting! He finally got his letter. Questions exploded inside Harry's head like fireworks, and he couldn't decide which one to ask first. After a few minutes, he stammered, What does it mean? They wait for my owl? Galloping Gorgons, that reminds me, said Hagrid, clapping a hand to his forehead with enough force to knock over a cart horse. And from yet another pocket inside his overcoat, he pulled an owl. A real, live, rather ruffled-looking owl, a long quill, and a roll of parchment. With his tongue between his teeth, he scribbled like this. He wrote like this. Oh, bird. Dear Professor Dumbledore, given Harry his letter. Taking him to buy his things tomorrow. Weather's horrible. Hope you're well. Hagrid. Hagrid rolled up the note, gave it to the owl, which clamped it in its beak, went to the door, and threw the owl out into the storm. Then he came back and sat down as though this was as normal as talking on the telephone. Harry realized his mouth was open and closed it quickly. Where was I? Said Hagrid, but at the moment Uncle Vernon, still ashen-faced but looking very angry, moved into the firelight. He's not going, Hagrid grunted. I'd like to see a great muggle like you stop him, he said. Oh, what? Harry asked, interested. A muggle, Hagrid said. It's what we call non-magic folk like them. And it's your bad luck you grew up in a family of the biggest muggles I've ever laid eyes on. We swore when we took him in, we'd put a stop to this rubbish, said Uncle Vernon. Swore we'd stamp it out of him. Wizard indeed. You knew? Harry said. You knew what I am, that I'm a wizard? Knew? Shrieked Aunt Petunia, finally finding her voice. Knew? Of course we knew. How could we not? How could we not? My dratted sister being what she was. Oh, she got a letter just like that and disappeared off to that school. And came home every vacation with her pockets full of frog spawn, turning teacups into rats. I was the only one who saw her for what she was, a freak. But for my mother and father, oh no, it was Lily this and Lily that. They were proud of having a witch in the family. She stopped to draw in a deep breath and then went ranting on. It seemed like she had been wanting to say this for years. Then she met that Potter at school and they left and got married and had you. And of course I knew you'd be the same, just as strange, just as abnormal. And then, if you please, she went and got herself blown up. And then we got stuck with you. Harry had gone white. As soon as he found his voice, he said, Blown up? You said they died in a car crash. Car crash, Hagrid screamed, jumping up so angrily that the Dursleys scuttled back to their corner. How could a car crash kill Lily and James Potter? It's an outrage, a scandal. Harry Potter not knowing his own story when every kid in our world knows his story. But why, Hagrid? But why? What happened? Harry asked urgently. The anger faded from Hagrid's face. He looked suddenly anxious. I never expected this, he said in a worried voice. I had no idea when Dumbledore told me there might be trouble getting hold of you, how much you didn't know. And Harry, I don't know if I'm the right person to tell you your story. But someone's got to. You can't go off to Hogwarts not knowing. He threw the Dursleys another dirty look. Well, it's best you know as much as I can tell you. Mind, I can't tell you everything. It's a great mystery, parts of it. He sat down, stared into the fire for a few seconds, and then said, It begins, I suppose, with a person called, but it's incredible you don't know his name. Everyone in our world knows. Who? Harry interrupted. Well, you know, I don't like saying the name if I can help it. No one does. Why not? Gulping gargoyles, Harry. People are still scared. Blimey, this is difficult. See, there once was a wizard who went bad as you could go, worse than worse, and his name was... Hagrid gulped. No words could come out. Could you write it down? Harry asked. Nah, can't spell it. All right, the word is Voldemort. Hagrid shuddered. Don't make me say it again. Anyway, this wizard about 20 years ago now started looking for followers. Got 'em too. Some were afraid. Some wanted just a little bit of his power because he was getting himself power all right. It was dark days, Harry. Didn't know who you trust. Didn't dare get friendly with strange wizards or witches. Terrible things were happening. He was taken over. Of course, some stood up to him, and he killed them. Horribly. One of the only safe places left was Hogwarts. Reckon Dumbledore's the only one you know who was afraid of. Didn't dare try taking the school. Not just then, anyway. Now, your mum and dad were as good a witch and wizard as I ever knew. Head boy and girl at Hogwarts in their day. Suppose the mystery is why you know who never tried to get him on his side before. Probably knew they were too close to Dumbledore to want anything to do with the dark side. Maybe he thought he could persuade them. Maybe he just wanted them out of the way. Anyway, who knows? He turned up in your village where you were living on Halloween 10 years ago. You were just 1 year old. He came to your house and Hagrid suddenly pulled out a very dirty spotted handkerchief and blew his nose, and that sounded like a foghorn. Sorry, he said, but it's sad. Know your mom and dad and nicer people couldn't be found. Not anywhere. You know who killed them. And this is the real mystery of the whole thing. He tried to kill you too, Harry. Wanted to make it a clean job, I suppose, or maybe he just liked killing everything by then. But he couldn't do it. No, never wondered how you got that mark on your forehead? That's no ordinary cut there, boy. That's what you get when a powerful evil curse touches you. You took care of your mom and dad, and your house even. But it didn't work on you, and that's why you're famous, Harry. No one ever lived after he decided to kill him. No one except you. And he killed some of the best witches and wizards of the age. The McKinnons, the Bones, the Pruitts, and you. You were only a baby, and you lived. Something very painful was going on in Harry's mind as Hagrid's story came to a close. He saw again the blinding flash of green light, more clearly than he had ever remembered it before, and he remembered something else for the first time in his life, a high, cruel, cold laugh. Hagrid was kept watching him sadly. Took you from the ruined house myself, on Dumbledore's orders, brought you to this lot. Load off, you old Tosh, or load of old Tosh, said Uncle Vernon. Harry jumped. He had almost forgotten the Dursleys were there. Uncle Vernon certainly seemed to have gotten his courage back. He was glaring at Hagrid and his fists were clenched. Now, you listen here, boy, he snarled. I accept that there's something strange about you. Probably nothing good. Nothing a good beating wouldn't have cured. And as for all this about your parents, well, they're all weirdos. No denying it. And the world is better off without them, in my opinion. Asking for what they got, getting mixed up with those weird wizarding types. Just what I expected. Always knew they'd come to a sticky, sticky end. But at that moment, Hagrid leapt from the sofa and drew a battered pink umbrella from the inside of his coat. Pointing this at Uncle Dursley's or Uncle Vernon like a sword, he said, I'm warning you, Dursley. I'm warning you one more word. In danger of being speared on the end of an umbrella by a bearded giant, Uncle Vernon's courage failed again. He flattened himself against the wall and fell silent. That's better, Hagrid said, breathing heavily and sitting back down on the sofa, which this time sagged right onto the floor. Harry, meanwhile, still had questions to ask. Hundreds of them, in fact. But what happened to you know who? Good question, Harry. Disappeared, vanished, same night. He tried to kill you. Makes you even more famous. That's the biggest mystery of all. See? He was getting more and more powerful. But why'd he go? Some say he died, codswallop, in my opinion. Dunno if he had enough human left in him to die. Some say he's still out there biding his time but I don't believe it. People who was on his side came back to ours. Some of them came out of some kind of trance. Don't reckon they could have done it if he was coming back. Most of us reckon he's still out there somewhere, but lost his powers, too weak to carry on. 'Cause something about you finished him, Harry. There was something going on that night he hadn't counted on. I don't know what it was. No one does. But something about you stumped him all right. Hagrid looked at Harry with warmth and respect blazing in his eyes, but Harry instead of feeling pleased and proud of himself, felt quite sure that there had been a horrible mistake. A wizard? Him? How could he possibly be? He had spent his life being clouded by the Dudleys and bullied by Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon. If he were really a wizard, why hadn't he turned them into warty toads every time they had tried to lock him in the cupboard? If he had once defeated the greatest sorcerer in the world, how come Dudley had always been able to kick him around like a football? Hagrid, he said quietly, I think you must have made a mistake. I don't think I'm a wizard. To his surprise, Hagrid chuckled. Not a wizard, eh? Never made things happen when you was scared or angry? Harry looked into the fire. Now he came to think about it. Every odd thing that he ever made his aunt and uncle furious with him had happened when Harry, had been upset or angry. Usually chased by Dudley's gang, he had somehow found himself out of their reach. Dreading going to school with that ridiculous haircut, he managed to make it grow back. And the very last time Dudley had hit him, he got his revenge, without even realizing it. Hadn't he? He set a boa constrictor on him. Harry looked at Hagrid smiling and saw Hagrid was positively beaming at him. See, said Hagrid, Harry Potter, not a wizard. You wait, you'll be famous at Hogwarts. But Uncle Vernon wasn't going to give in without a fight. Haven't I told you once already? He's not going. He's going to Stonewall High and he'll be grateful for it. I've read those letters, and he needs all sorts of rubbish, spell books and wands and whatevers. If he wants to go, a great muggle like yourself won't stop him. Stop Lily and James Potter's son going to Hogwarts? You're mad. His name's been written down ever since he's been born. He's off to the finest school of witchcraft and wizardry in the world. 7 years there, and he won't know himself. He'll be with youngsters of his own sort. for a change, and he'll be under the greatest headmaster of Hogwarts ever, Albus Dumbledore. I'm not paying for some old crackpot fool to teach him magic tricks, yelled Uncle Vernon. Well, he had finally gone too far. Hagrid seized his umbrella and whirled it over his head. Never, he thundered, insult Albus Dumbledore in front of me. He brought out the umbrella, swishing down through the air, and pointed it at Dudley. There was a flash of violet light, a sound like a firecracker, and a sharp squeal. And the next second, Dudley was dancing on the spot with his hands clasped over his fat bottom, howling in pain. When he turned his back on them, Harry saw a curly pigtail poking through the back of his trousers. Uncle Vernon roared, pulling Aunt Petunia and Dudley into the other room. He cast one terrified look at Hagrid and slammed the door behind them. Hagrid looked down at his umbrella and stroked his beard. Shouldn't have lost me temper, he said ruefully. But it didn't work anyways. I meant to turn him into a pig, but I suppose he was already much of a pig as it was. He cast a sideways look at Harry under his bushy eyebrow. Be grateful if you didn't tell anyone about this. Not supposed to be doing magic, strictly speaking. I was allowed to do a bit, but for one reason or another, I'm not allowed to do magic anymore. Why aren't you supposed to do magic? Harry asked. Oh, well, I was at Hogwarts myself, and I got expelled. But tell you the truth, in me third year, they snapped me wand in half and everything. But Dumbledore let me stay on as gamekeeper. He's a great man, Dumbledore. Why were you expelled? Oh, look at the time. It's getting late, and we got lots to do tomorrow, said Hagrid. Gotta get up to town and get all your books and that. He took off his thick black coat and threw it to Harry. You can kip under that. Don't mind if it wriggles a bit. I think I got a couple of dormice in one of those pockets. All right. That's the end of chapter 4. So now Harry has a friend in Hagrid. And Hagrid is going to be his first step into getting him to Hogwarts. It's an exciting time. Now, think about what Harry discovered. He discovered that the life that he knew, the life that he really didn't enjoy, was really actually a lie. If you can put yourself in Harry's shoes, how would you feel if you discovered that the life that you knew is really the opposite of what your life should be like? So he was kind of like a forgotten member of the Dursley family, and now all of a sudden he found out he's famous. Imagine how Harry's feeling. So in the comment section below, I want you to kind of think about that. Think about how Harry must be feeling. Is he excited? Is he nervous? Is he angry? Is he confused? Think about that. Tell me what your thoughts are, and then give me a reason why. All right, so that was chapter 4 of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I hope you're enjoying it. Tune in tomorrow for chapter 5. All right, miss you. Love you. Stay safe.